Tonight, the Epstein firestorm is back, and now a majority of Americans say Prince Andrew should testify before Congress. That includes Democrats, Republicans, even voters who rarely agree. They want answers. So what is driving the outrage, and who's next under oath? Victoria Churchill broke the story for the Daily Mail. She's up late with me tonight here on the Final Five. Welcome back to the show, Victoria. It's good to see you.
Always great to be on with you, Jim. Thanks so much for having me back. And, this is a story that I have covered for months now. So I love covering all these developments. And this latest news comes on the back of some of our own polling that we've done at the Daily Mail. So looking forward to discussing it with you here.
Okay, so let's do that. Why is this boiling over now? Because this has come in waves. We had the big tranche of Epstein documents released, and there have been other batches of it. But the person who's received really the most scrutiny has been the Prince formerly known as Andrew.
Absolutely. So, this is a scandal that has captivated both sides of the Atlantic. Of course, we're the Daily Mail. I'm on the U.S. political team. We've done plenty of reporting on it with my colleagues over across the pond on the UK side of the publication. So, this is something that we really think that we've kind of dominated in the reporting on this. With myself, I primarily cover Congress. And so it's interesting that we've had both Democrat and Republican members of Congress throughout the last few months come out and say that they want to see former Prince Andrew come testify about these files. Now, we also have seen that, basically, I think some of the criticism that we've seen of law enforcement here in the U.S. is that, over in the U.K., I guess, for lack of a better term, heads are rolling over there. Mm-hmm. So Andrew has obviously lost his title. We had the former U.K. ambassador to the U.S., Lord Peter Mandelson. He's also all over the files. He was first taken back to the UK by Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and then was eventually his Lord title also got stripped from him. Versus, the argument is that here in the US, we have not had too many actual implications that have resulted in kind of legal trouble for any of these people that have been involved. And now both Andrew and Mandelson over in the UK have been arrested on this idea that they were misusing their public office. That's not a I guess a law that we necessarily have, or a distinction that we necessarily have over here in the U.S. But of course, what we're seeing is, people at the top of both former Democrat and Republican administrations are being called in to testify. Of course, I think the highest level official that we have ever seen testify before Congress is now former President Bill Clinton and his wife Hillary Clinton. They were they were in front of Congress. They were at home in Chappaqua, New York, about an hour north of New York City. I was there freezing my booty off in the press conferences. Lord knows why they made us stand outside for hours and not let us into the building. But at the end of the day, it was worth it. We got lots of great stories out of that, lots of good traction. And, I think even still people are going through those hour-long testimonies or depositions, I guess is what they're technically called, when they're done in this closed-door setting here. Good legalese, good congressional language. But basically, Bill and Hillary were there for hours. They were grilled by lawmakers on both sides about what they knew about Epstein, about, where his money came from, how they got money that was tied to him. And, both Clintons were saying that us showing up here is really setting the precedent that nobody can defy congressional subpoena. Mm-hmm. Of course, the big question is whether President Trump will end up appearing before Congress in some capacity. But, we've also seen calls for other people like, Bill Gates, like Reid Hoffman. Their names are all over the Epstein files, and lawmakers want to talk to them as well. So based on what we've seen coming out of all of this so far, because President Trump was asked, just as you spoke, would he testify? And he has maintained that he has been, in his words, exonerated by what's been in these files so far. I think, to be fair, we didn't see any sort of definitive movement on that, but that seems to be where the committee, James Comer, believes the president doesn't need to go on the record any further when it comes to these files. Yes, and Comer was asked a question along these lines, both up in New York about a week ago, as well as, in other press conferences. Comer does press conferences typically before and after each one of these depositions that he has on Capitol Hill. So, Comer has been asked questions along these lines by members of the media, such as myself, numerous times, and he's said that members of the media also have opportunities to ask President Trump about this. And so that's kind of his argument for why he doesn't believe that Trump should come before Congress. office. But, of course, there's the idea that when he's in the Oval Office, he's not necessarily under oath. There's no kind of threat of perjury, anything like that, as there would be with a formal congressional, you're sworn in. You're not going to tell lies, right? The good old Harry Potter adage, I must not tell lies.
It'd be nice as a reporter to know that whoever you're talking to would tell you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, but that's not necessarily how it always works when there's an oath involved. Victoria, I know you're busy tonight, too, with what's happening in Georgia with the runoff, so we got to move on, but great to see you again. Victoria Churchill joining us here on The Final